Hey, it's John at Tinderbox Arts. In this video, I'm going to take my new Garmin Zumo XT. I'm going to mount it on the bike, which is a BMW R1200RT, and I'm going to tie it into the factory harness. Now, previous to getting the Garmin Zumo XT, I had this automotive style GPS mounted here, and I did a previous video about that. I did a homemade mount system right here, which has worked out very well over the years. And I also have this tied into the factory harness, but the new Garmin has some different arrangements we have to work on, so this is going to have to change. Now, the exact mounting scheme you use can vary. You may have a factory GPS mount up here. You may have something like I've done here, a homemade system. You may have something that mounts on a bolt on the handlebars, for example. So there are all different ways, but whatever method you use to mount it, when you connect it to the factory harness, it's going to be similar. Now, the factory harness for the GPS is located in here. You can get to it without removing any of the plastics or the Tupperware, we sometimes call it. However, I'm doing other work on the bike, so I will be removing it, and it makes it easier to film, but you don't need to. And I did a previous video about how to find this connection, but we'll review it today. Now, there will be differences in model years. This particular one is a 2012 model. If you have an earlier one or a later one, it may be slightly different, but the general concepts are going to be the same. All right, with the fairing out of the way, I'm going to get close up in here, right this section right here, and show you what's going on. All right, I'm reaching up underneath here now, so this is the right fork, this is the left fork as you're sitting on the bike, and I'll call this area here a subframe, and that's where you're going to find the factory cable. Now, this is a switched harness connection, meaning when the key is on, this is on. When you turn the key off, it turns off after 20 or 30 seconds. Now, previously, I had taken a cigarette lighter style connector and attached it to this factory harness so that I could use the stock Garmin cable. Now I need to change that. So I'm going to take off all the wire ties here and loosen this up so we can get a better look. Getting inside here, let me get my hand underneath. This is what you're after. Depending on the model year of the bike, this connector may have 2 wires or it may have 3 wires. Mine has 2. If you have a third wire, it's not used. It was a previous thing, I think, for a tachometer signal. I'm not actually sure, but you're not going to need it. All you need are these 2 wires. One is negative, one is positive. That's all we need. Now, once I remove all that extraneous wiring, this is what we're left with. It's a factory connector. And there's 2 wires, or like I said, there may be 3. Now, this is the new Garmin connector. You have this little thing for connecting to the GPS itself, and the factory wires has a little box right here with some electronics in it, and then the power cable is right here. Now, this power cable is what we need to connect to the bike. I'm going to change the factory harness because I don't need those old connectors. It's a proprietary connector I don't need anymore. Instead, I'm going to use these. Now, the slang for this are weather pack connectors. These are generic versions. If you've done any automotive work, these will look familiar to you. There are variations, but they look something like this. And you buy them with 2 parameters in mind. One is the gauge of the wire that you need to connect, and the other is how many wires you have. You could buy these on Amazon. I'll put a link, and they're very inexpensive. Here on the factory cable on the bike, I could just cut these wires off, get rid of this proprietary connector, and install one of the weather pack connectors instead. So this is exactly how these weather pack connectors go together. I'll try to give you an overview here. So you have the wire coming in on one side. You have these little rubbery seals, which go on the wire first. Then you have these crimped connectors. This is the male end. It also has a little rubbery seal right here. And then this little red plastic thing snaps in place after you've assembled it to keep everything locked in place. Then you have the female side. You have 2 pins here. You have 2 more rubbery seals, and then you would have the other wires that you're connecting to. So here you see these rubbery seals. These pins go into this connector that exact way, in other words, that orientation, and the pins crimp over both the seal and the wire itself, and that's your physical connection to the wire. Then you stick them into this connector here, and they will lock in place. Then this red thing is another piece of plastic which helps keep everything locked in place. And then on the other side, you have the female side, and these pins go in this orientation. And again, these are crimped to the wire, and they crimp to the rubber seal. So to connect the wires to the terminal, I'm not going to lie, it is a little bit of a pain, just because if you have fat fingers like me and not very good eyesight, it can be a strain. But I'm just going to take off the ends here, which were soldered before. I don't want a soldered connection. And I'm just going to strip the ends off here. Now don't forget to put on these little yellow rubbery things first. That goes over the wire. That's easy to forget. Now you can buy a special tool to crimp these terminals on here. However, you don't need it. And if you're careful with a pair of needle nose pliers, that'll work just fine. So this terminal connector, I will give you a close-up here, partially goes over that rubber, that yellow rubbery thing, and partially crimps to the wire. All right, so these are what the crimps look like. So you have the little rubber thing right here. You have these wings right here that go over that rubbery part. All right, that seals everything tight. Then right here, these wings right here go over the wire, and that's what crimps the wire and provides the electrical connection. There are also a third set of wings right here. You do not touch, do not crimp. Those keep this metal connector in the plastic cover there. So those, you know, kind of lock it in place. So you don't want to touch those. So you're going to squeeze this one, you're going to squeeze this one, leave this one alone. And those are pretty good given my eyesight. And if you have the tool, it will crimp this one and this one at the same time and make it easier, but it's not necessary. Now to install these in the plastic cover here, all right, they go in this orientation. I'm going to try to do this on camera. It's very difficult because the camera's right in front of me, but so I'm going to insert this one first. Actually, I'm going to do both at the same time. And you can see them sticking out the end here, and then I just give the pull test. Make sure that pulls and doesn't come out, and that's good. So those rubber seals are inside there. You have this rubber seal, and this side is all set. Now I have to do the other side. Keep in mind, I need to make sure that the positive and negative are oriented correctly. So on this side it doesn't really matter, but now on the other side I got to make sure that I am oriented correctly. Once you are sure that this side is good though, we're going to lock it in place with this little plastic tab here. Now you see I have two alligator clips connected here, and the point of that is that I need to measure which is negative and which is positive. So right now the white alligator clip is connected to the brown wire. At the other end of the alligator clip, this is the brown wire, okay? This is my Kaiweets meter, which I did another video on, and I'm just going to leave it on auto mode, and I'm going to take the other end of my lead and I'm just going to touch it to the exhaust. And you see the meter is registering continuity, so that means that this is the negative side that we're looking at, because I'm getting continuity between the exhaust on the engine and that wire. So now I need to put the connectors on this end. I would love to film that for you, but honestly I don't think I can. So it works exactly the same way as the opposite side, but there's just less room to maneuver in here for a camera. It took me a few minutes of struggling there, but I have it. Now I'll probably put some electrical tape up here just to, you know, stabilize this even a little bit more. But as far as water getting in there, those rubber seals will prevent that. All right, I've routed that cable, the Garmin cable, up to where the new GPS will be. This is the old cradle that's going away. And all I did was route it through here, which I've done before. There's plenty of room. And then there's all sorts of extra cable. I'll end up winding that together and zip tying it to the frame. And this is our new connector that we have here. So I'll just connect this to the bike harness and we will be good as far as the cable run. All right, let's look at the old mount. So It's a double ball here, so there's a 1-inch ball on this side and a 1-inch ball on this side. Again, this side for you may be different, but this side should be about the same. I no longer need this cradle, so this cradle goes away, and this ball mount I'm also going to remove. So just that section goes away, all the rest will remain here. So the new mount has two pieces. One is just this little bracket here with a 1-inch ball, and the other piece is where the GPS actually mounts. So here's the back, and here's the front. The cable goes through the back and comes out the front like this. And then you just pull this back, and it kind of pinches in there, and those are the electrical contacts for the GPS. With that in there like that, we mount this bracket to the back there, and that will hold that or pinch it in place so it can't ever come out. I did not find bolts, so you have to provide your own, but otherwise it's simple. Now when I bolted that ball to this other mount, I did use some thread locker there just to make sure these things don't come loose when I'm riding. And then this mount we just completed goes in here, so you have a ball on this side, a ball on this side, and you have infinite adjustment, and it's as simple as that. Now this side for you might look different. You might have it attached to your handlebars, or you might not use a ball system. You might have this bracket attached to the factory mount in some manner. So there are different ways of mounting, but that's the gist of it. All right, before I button this up and tie everything off, we better turn the key on and make sure it works. So right now I'm blank, nothing on the GPS. Turn this key on, and the Garmin lights up. Now when I shut the key off, the dash will go off. The GPS will stay on for a period before that circuit shuts down, so don't be alarmed about that. All right, I didn't measure the time period. It was 30 seconds, a minute, something like that. So now this is all set, ready to go. All I need to do is tuck the wires in neatly, and under here I'm going to zip tie the wires so that they're neatly packed away. One other thing I want to mention is that this mount is from Garmin itself, and I don't think it's as secure as my former mount, which was a third party. There is one other thing you could do, and if you look up camera tethers, you can buy self-stick tethers that stick to the back of this, and you could tie it off somewhere safe so that just in case you accidentally hit this button here, which releases the GPS, or something else goes wrong, you're not going to lose this thing on the road. The tether will hold it from dropping down any further. And lastly, remember this does have Wi-Fi capabilities, so if you do have Wi-Fi in your garage, which I do, you don't really need to take this off to update it. It will do it over the Wi-Fi automatically, and it won't be a problem. So that's a really nice feature. So I look forward, now that this is mounted and powered well, to getting this thing on the road and see how it does. But so far I've been very pleased with the unit.